All right. So the topic that I will be presenting on today is kind of giving you all more information on the legislation and what exactly does that mean for your business. As mentioned, I am one of the sustainability specialists for the city of Orange. Isabel and I specifically focus on the city of Orange, so we are here to serve you all, answer any questions that you all have, specifically regarding food waste. Not only that, but also recycling as well. To kind of give you all an overview of the different requirements in the state of California, we have created this graphic to kind of show how the legislation has progressed over the years, starting from the early 2000s all the way up until now. The main pieces of legislation that I will be focusing on are 341, 1826, and 1383. So 341 has to do with dry mixed recycling. So those are items such as cardboard, paper, aluminum cans, and plastic bottles. And AB 341 was passed in 2012, and it went into effect in the middle of 2012, so July 2012. And this required that all businesses who generate over 4 yards of trash have some sort of recycling program. On the other hand, 1826 and 1383 focus more on organics. So as you can see, there are two components. One of them is dry mixed recycling, and the other one is organics. And organics includes items such as your food waste and your yard waste. So food waste, food scraps, fruit peels, vegetables, leftovers, all that is included in your food waste, as well as food soil paper. And yard waste can include items such as leaves, shrubs, branches, and stuff like that. So with 1826, it set a threshold of 2 yards, 2 yards or more. So if you generate at least 2 yards of trash, you have to have some sort of organics program. But with 1383, it removes the thresholds for both 341 and 1826. So any sort of standard for above 4 yard or above 2 yard was removed. And with 1383, all commercial businesses as well as multifamilies have to have a organics program and a recycling program. And the other aspect of 1383 I wanted to touch on was food recovery. So that's where Abound Food Care comes into play. And with food recovery, certain businesses are required to donate a portion of their leftover food. So these businesses include restaurants, hospitals, food service providers, wholesale producers, as well as restaurants and hotels. So now I'm going to talk about the reason kind of why California is pushing this 1383 bill. And as you all can see, this 1383 bill is definitely a step up from the previous requirements, since it requires all businesses to follow this practice. And the main reason why California is doing this is twofold. So the first one is California wants to reduce the issue of food waste. So as you can see on the graphic, a lot of food is unfortunately thrown into the landfill. But on the other hand, there are also a lot of members of our society who do not have adequate food. So California is kind of bringing this point of how come there's so much leftover food, but people, are hungry. How come there's this kind of disparity between too much food, but a lot of people still not being able to get the food that they need. And that's why they had this requirement for food recovery. And on the other hand, what California wants to do is reduce the amount of food that ends up in the landfill. And the reason why they're doing this is to reduce any methane that is released into the atmosphere. And methane is a really powerful greenhouse gas that contributes to climate change and global warming. So what exactly is CR&R doing with the food waste that is being collected, food waste and green waste? So these organic material are being brought to our facility in the city of Paris in Riverside County. And in Riverside County, we have our anaerobic digester facility. This facility is the largest in the world, and it consists of 4 anaerobic digesters, as you can see across the facility. And this facility runs 24/7 in the city of Paris. So what does this facility do with our organic waste? It does a couple of different things. So the process of anaerobic digestion involves bacteria. So once this organic waste is brought in contact with this bacteria, the bacteria consumes the organic waste and it actually produces biogas. And what biogas is, it can be used to create renewable natural gas as well as compost that is used in gardens as well as farmlands as well. So with this organic waste, we can produce 2 items, which is renewable gas that we use for our vehicles and our trucks, and it also creates compost as well. Some of you all might know that the city of Orange, as well as other cities that we service, have compost events. And that's kind of a way of showing you all that, the food waste that you give to us is being used to produce compost, and we're kind of giving it back to you all. So now I'm kind of going to introduce the logistics of this requirement. So with this requirement, like I mentioned, there are 2 requirements, so recycling as well as food waste. First, we'll talk about the food waste. So we have a couple different options in terms of food waste services. On the left, we have our larger food waste dumpster bin, and then on the right, we have our food waste cart, which is a smaller container. I will preface this by saying that even though the law says that all businesses have to have a food waste container, if you are a business that does not generate food waste, let's say you are a small business that has to do with, I don't know, you're creating some sort of product that's not food, then you do not have to get this container. However, you do have to contact us and apply for a waiver, so that way you are waived from this requirement. So yeah, these are the 2 options in terms of the food waste that we have. And then for the recycling, the key distinction between recycling and organics is that recycling is required. Unfortunately, there are no waivers or exemptions for this service. And for this service, we have a couple different options. Just like food waste, we have our recycling carts, and we also have our larger dumpster bins as well. And lastly, we have a split bin. So if you are concerned about the space that your trash dumpster is taking up, you can choose to have a split bin, and that kind of gives you 2 services within the same amount of space, since it's divided in half. Now, what exactly do Isabel and I do? So we help you all set up these services, but at the same time, we also help with education, as well as kind of setting up and making sure that you all are comfortable with these new services. So we totally understand that this is something that's new, that some of you all may not be familiar with, and we're here to help. So we can provide education materials, we can do site visits, we can do kind of waste audits to determine how much service you might need for your recycling and your food waste. Just kind of different things that Isabel and I can do. And then on the slide are some examples of outreach that we can provide to you all. So most of them involve what kind of items can be going in what container. And that wraps up my section. Thank you all so much for listening.
Next, we'll turn things over to Michael Ballier to share a little bit more about Senate Bill 1383 and what it means for businesses in Orange.
Well, anyways, like I said, I've helped cities deal with regulation since 1991, 1992. So the big difference is, and everybody's heard of SB 1383 before this meeting, really these are regulations to a law that was passed in 2016. That's when SB 1383 passed. The state got together, Air Resources Control Board, Cal Recycle, and came up with all the specifics. and this regulation has a lot of specifics for cities, for haulers, and for businesses. So I always like, wrong way. I knew it was going to happen. I'm horrible with clickers, sorry. I like to present this slide. This is something from Cal Recycle's presentation that I borrowed. This kind of puts you in the minds of the regulators and the legislators that pass these laws. So again, unless there's a huge, I'm holding it up high, so hopefully, unless there's a huge paradigm shift in the state, which I don't see coming anytime soon, these regulations aren't going away. 2024 is when we really need to have quality programs in place, so it's very timely that you're here and that you're listening to this. So let's look at the specifics upon businesses. Okay, as CRNR mentioned, you must have a problem to recycle all your organic waste that you generate. Understand that cardboard and paper are also considered organic waste, while if you generate 20 gallons or less, this is about a 20-gallon container, food waste or recyclables, you can qualify for a waiver, but again, most businesses have about 12 cubic yards a week of trash. I think a 3-yarder a couple times a week to 4 times a week is where you are. So chances are neither one of those is going to apply. So you also, in the regulations, have to educate all your employees at least once a year. That's where if you get materials from your hauler and just email blast it out to everybody, you're complying with the regulation. If you bring somebody new on board into your business, you have 14 days to educate them on the program that you have. Also, if you do have a multifamily property, a new tenant that comes in has to be educated within 14 days. These are specific requirements. The state wants everybody to be aware the proper things have to go in the proper container. Let's see. The indoor container piece, now this is something that is in the regulations. Technically, anywhere there is a trash can inside your business, you're supposed to have a recycling container right by it. The only exception would be restrooms. Now, I don't think the city's going to come in and be searching for all these containers, but again, it's good to know what the regulation says. If that part of your business generates food waste, then you need 3 containers, trash, recycling, and food waste, so that people have the ability to put the right thing in the right container. Again, that's what these regulations are trying to promote. If you sell a product, there's a regulation called AB 827. It basically, in public spaces, you have to provide recycling for the public. So if you're a donut shop and people can sit down in your donut shop and eat donuts, you need to have a food waste recycling container. Also, if you have a trash container out there, you need a recycling container. So the people that sell 3 container systems are doing a good bunch of business here in California because that is what the regulations require. Again, they want people to put the right thing in the right container, and it's actually in those regulations. So again, you have a good partner in CRNR. Understand that California state law, it's the Rancho Mirage decision, allows you to sell or donate recyclables to anybody you want. The problem is recycling markets aren't very robust, so the chances are, unless you have bales of cardboard, you're not going to be able to get somebody to take them away for free or pay you, so you need to work with your hauler. Now, they can come out, they can train. There's a lot of resources on the city's website, but I recommend having somebody at your business who's kind of the point person on all this that can help remind people, hey, here's our program. You know, again, here's, you know, where we put our paper. Hey, make sure in the cafeteria you're putting the food waste in the right container. Somebody to keep people aware. Now, the containers, again, I've done programs for big businesses. We try to limit trash containers and put recycling containers right by them. We did that years ago to help people manage the flow of waste within your business. You may have a warehouse where there's a lot of cardboard and paper. You may have an office area and a copier where there's a lot of paper generated. You've got your break rooms, your cafeteria where the food waste is going to be generated. If you put your containers in your facility with a little bit of thought with that waste flow, that really helps get things in the right container outside. I'm a big fan of bags. I know that is, not a good thing to say as an environmental consultant, but you have multiple people in your facility. If I'm using a clear bag for all my food waste and I go out to my container and I see a bag that's not clear, I know I've got a contamination problem. I can fix it. Same thing with using black containers for trash. If I'm seeing a black container in my recycling bin, I know I have an issue. So again, the state is really promoting colors. They want blue to be the color for recycling, black or gray to be the color for trash, and brown or green to be the color for organics. So the more you can work those colors into the program, work those colors into your educational material, the thought process is over the next 2-3 years, people are going to see blue and say, okay, that's where I put my recyclables. So again, if you can get bags of that color to help on the recycling side, anything that can change that behavior. Because let's face it, I'm 61. I've been throwing food in the trash for 60 of those years. I've been pretty good this last year, but it takes time. So again, color, strategically placing containers, those help. Again, 2024 is when the state has actually required all cities to develop fining mechanisms, and 2024 is when the state's fining mechanisms upon the cities can actually go into effect. So again, having a quality program will become important, and probably as soon as next year. So again, you saw this earlier. I stole this graph because, again, I like the fact that the state looked at what was going in the landfills, and that's how they came up with that pie chart. Now, that's residential, that's industrial. For your business, typically about half of what you generate is recyclable. 25 to 40% is trash, but if you look at what the container sizes are in the back of your business, it's probably 75, 80% trash. Trash is getting much more expensive. Organics is getting expensive. Recycling is your money saver. The more you can keep cardboard out of the trash, the more you can keep paper out of the trash, your beverage containers. Like I said, that 2-3 yard bins a week for trash that you have now. If you can change that to 1 4-yarder once a week, you're cutting a lot out of your trash bill, and you could get a 3-yard bin for recyclables. You got the 65-gallon cart. I think you offer the 35 here. Again, I would always start with the smallest cart once a week, and when you start filling it up, go to twice a week. It's dollars and cents. I used to help people develop recycling programs not because the state was mandating it, but they wanted to save money. They're like, hey, my trash bill keeps going up each year. What can I do about it? So again, if you're using those different bags so you can inspect your containers, if you're making sure your container is full when it's picked up, it's not half full, controlling your costs, and really try to switch as much as you can to that recycling container. Get all your dry recyclables out of the trash. You get the organics out of the trash. You can live with once a week trash service. You're not going to have the smelly organics in there. It's not going to be overflowing because nobody breaks down the cardboard boxes, and you can save money and comply with the state law. So that is all I have. Let me turn it over to Mike, and he'll let you know what's up with the edible food after Jen. Sorry, Jen.
No worries, you're exactly right. So next, we will be turning it over to Abound Food Care. And so Mike Larakis, thank you in advance for sharing more about the edible food recovery requirements and what they mean for businesses in Orange.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. We want to kind of walk through a couple of items. First and foremost, let's walk through what are the requirements for edible food recovery under SB 1383. In essence, the state of California is going to assume that if you have an operation of a certain size, you have excess edible food. And they are holding the city accountable for making sure that we recover all excess edible food coming from your establishment. Much like the fats, oil, and grease program, it is specific to the location. So referring to a corporate office is not of any particular use. It really comes down to your location and the size of your location, seating capacity and square footage, and we can share the details with you. So the reality is that if you have excess edible food, you have a restaurant that's 5,000 square feet or higher, or you have a seating capacity over 220, then you're going to be required to participate. Our role on behalf of the city and behalf of you is to put together a program and manage the process of allowing you to donate your excess edible food. That food is then going to be sent to nonprofit agencies all over the city and beyond that can use your food. So let's look at the reasons why we are always afraid of these programs. Number one, there is sometimes not a focus on food safety. This program is designed to handle excess edible food the same way we handle food inside your own restaurant or inside your food establishment. In other words, we handle the food with the same principles. We are tracking the time and temperature. So if you are an operator of a food service establishment, you know you've critical control points of food safety are time and temperature, and we will make sure that you have that. The other steps that we're going to follow, not only in protecting that food supply that you're going to be providing, but we're going to keep you compliant by having these two elements that are critical. Agreements, so you need to show that there is an agreement between you and recipient organizations. The beauty of working in Orange is that Abound Food Care can do that for you, meaning you don't have to have an agreement with every nonprofit agency that picks up food at your location or receives food from you. We can do that on your behalf. The other element that the state is going to look for that ensures compliance is that you have a log of how much food you're donating. What is the amount of excess edible food that you're donating? We will keep that for you using a tech platform. Tech platforms really easy. All of us in our industry order product now using tech platforms. It's just reversing the process. It's allowing you to list on a tech platform what amount of food you have, what type of food, and then that is your log. It's going to match with the nonprofit organization that's going to be receiving it. It requires that nonprofit to confirm that they can get it, they can receive it, and they can distribute it and feed people with it. So here's in essence, the food donation system as we set it up. It's a donor can go direct to a nonprofit agency. It could be a homeless shelter. It could be a youth center. It could be a senior center. It could be a church. Any legitimate 501c3 nonprofit that is going to handle that food. We will vet those nonprofits to make sure they have the capacity to handle your food safely. And the primary reason is liability protection's one, but for the most part, we know there are liability protections built in that allow you to donate food without fear of being sued, as long as you know that food is wholesome and in good condition. But more importantly, it's brand protection. This program will protect your brand. You don't need to be concerned that the food you donate is going to ultimately be mishandled and could potentially get somebody sick. So it's that ability to not only protect the brand, but also enhance the brand. So you can go directly to a nonprofit agency. If it's a large quantity, it can go directly to a food bank. The food bank will distribute it to the nonprofit agencies. But the reality is that sometimes that food is best served being repurposed. And we have developed a network of food repurposing kitchens. And you'll see right here, there are some examples of meals that are produced with excess edible food using a network of permitted food establishments to repurpose into meals, vacuum sealed, blast frozen, or blast chilled. It extends the lead time or shelf life and now allows us to get this food to nonprofit agencies that are feeding people in need. So it creates a stronger community, healthier community. There's a marketing component to this that is an advantage to you as a donor. In other words, we can show where your food is going and how it's impacting your neighborhood. Your customers now see you in another light. They see you as great community partners that are strengthening your community. The contract management is critical. That is the compliance component of it. So when you get an inspection at your facility, they're going to check to make sure that you have a log in place. Again, the tech platform would provide that, and you have an agreement in place. The tech platform will provide that as well. So it makes compliance really easy. The other component of it is, again, us tracking the partners that are going to be receiving your food, making sure that they're able to handle it, and allowing you to rest assured that your donation is going to be feeding someone in need and will not lead to any kind of a foodborne illness. And lastly, there are some additional elements that you should be aware of. There are cost benefits associated with donating food. So as Mike Ballier mentioned, first of all, it's if you can donate that product, you can get a tax deduction on it, a write-off, up to 66% of the value of the food. So rather than pay to have that removed, you can donate it and get a tax deduction on it. And again, there are marketing benefits. There's also ancillary benefits, like staff members become engaged because they now have the opportunity to, change the world just by working at a local operation, whether it's a restaurant, grocery store, hotel, wherever it might be. The donation platform is called Chow Match. We will be more than happy to help you get set up on it. It's very simple and very quick. It allows you to start listing your donations, having those donations sent out to these nonprofit agencies, and most importantly, we'll be able to track where it goes, and we can help you tell the story of what your food, what kind of impact it's having in the community. We will track that food throughout the entire process. The onus is on the city. The state is going to hold the city accountable to making sure that we hit targeted goals, that everybody complies. So our role on your behalf is to keep donors, what they call food waste generators, compliant with state law, which ultimately keeps the city compliant. And from an industry standpoint, a food industry standpoint, this is an effort that we know we can reach the targeted goals. We don't grow food, produce food, or serve food for the purpose of throwing it away. It's money to us, to the food industry, and we don't throw cash away. So there's typically a reason why we've discarded food. Given this an opportunity to donate this food and know that it's going to be done safely is a huge advantage for us. So those are some of the system-wide challenges that we have. If you are a multi-unit operator, then unfortunately you may have multiple cities coming at you and asking that different programs be applied to it. What we want to do is be able to provide you with the same system-wide solution that you can use anywhere. So to wrap it up, you have the ability to donate food. You can go to the city's website. You can go to aboundfoodcare.org. You can go on and sign up on the app. Download the app. It's very simple. It's desktop or it's cell phone, and you can start donating excess edible food. Our job, our role is to protect your brand and keep the city and your business compliant with SB 1383. In doing that, you're going to see that we are able to provide that brand protection, provide you with tax benefits and cost benefits, and impact the community, which is where you make your living and where we all make our living. So those are the advantages of doing so. We'll be reaching out to all food waste generators, especially those that are Tier 1 and Tier 2, meaning you've been identified by the state as having to participate. And again, I can't reiterate enough, the response of we don't have any excess edible food, that could very well be, but there's an assumption by the state of California that we do have excess food, and we're here to help you comply. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. So now we do have a big chunk of time dedicated to answer any questions that you might have. So as we transition to Q&A, as a reminder, we have representatives here from the City of Orange Public Works, from CR&R Your Hauler, from Michael Ballier Consulting, and from Abound Food Care. So we'll transition on to the Q&A portion of today. All right, and we'll open it up for members of the group today to see whatever questions you might have. And Sarah on our team will be bringing over a microphone.
Yeah, you mentioned that we have to have a recycled container by each trash can. Will that count also on the patient rooms?
Good question. Again, the regulation says that next to every trash container, there needs to be a recycling container. I'm not aware of a hard push on that. I think in patient areas, gosh, this is going to be broadcast, so I'm going to get in trouble. I think it's better to ask forgiveness and permission. Again, I think the idea is for your employees to have areas where there's trash containers, recycling containers, and if there's food, organics. Be strategic, just don't put trash cans all over the place, because again, we want to change behavior. But in patient areas, I don't think that qualifies of AB 827, where that's really a public need. I wouldn't be too concerned in that area. And, they'll find me if I'm wrong.
Thank you very much. What other questions do we have here today?
Can I add?
Yeah.
It brings up a good point you asked about if it has to be in a room. If you do food scrapping in the room, then that would be a problem. But typically, that food, that plate, is being taken back to a kitchen or an area. So that's where the trash can would be considered. But also on the edible food donation component of it, there's still a when in doubt, throw it out component. In other words, again, as we mentioned, food safety is number one. So you have to make sure that this is food that follows Cal Code guidelines. So if it's on a buffet line, we have to take measures to make sure that that food is not exposed to the public. If it is a traditional buffet line, a pre-COVID buffet line where it's open, that typically is food that should not be donated because it is not, there is that cross-contamination risk.
Thank you. Did anyone else think of any other questions while we were chatting? All right. Well, our team did think of one question that folks might have as they're watching this afterwards, and that's for Mike Larakos. So as you were sharing the edible food recovery requirements, we wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more on when it's required, if there's a certain threshold that businesses have to meet. And then could you also elaborate on the vacuum sealed meals and what that looks like from the food recovery kitchens?
Certainly. So the law for Tier 2 generators takes effect January of 2024, January 1st. So we want to have these programs in place for you by January 1st so that you can start donating. That's the timeline that's associated with this. As far as those meals, the idea being that we have bulk product. And everybody gets it. I mean, sometimes you get a mispick item or a wrong product delivered. It's a bulk item. The idea being many times the items that we will send to a nonprofit agency, they may not have the resources to serve it or do anything with it. They may not have the staffing available to do anything with it or the expertise. And also we're dealing with typically end-of-life food. So by utilizing cook-chill methodology, having students, so there's a vocational training component to this, to have them being able to work with this food, create meals, vacuum seal them, blast chill them, you stunt the bacteria growth, you extend the shelf life. It now gives us an opportunity to move that food around to where it can actually be used, because the last thing we want to do is just trade dumpsters. That doesn't do anybody any good. We want to be able to take that food, repurpose it, and get it to where it'll have an impact. And again, the last component of it is let's track that food. Let's see what kind of an impact it's having in the community, because that's a wonderful story that you can share with your guests, your customers.
Thank you. All right, I'll open it up one last time to see if there's any other questions in the room. And then again to our presenters, is there anything else that comes to mind that you didn't already cover?
I wanted to talk about the split bin that I purposely hiked, that I made sure I brought, right? Because this is super important, especially for commercial businesses that have restaurants or right, food, right? Sorry about that. This is going to help immensely in the kitchen, right? Or wherever we're prepping the food. Typically, there's a table because I give trainings, right? And they're chopping, they're doing whatever, and whatever scraps, boom, they just get slide right into this. And if we could just fill one of these daily, and we will with any place that has a restaurant, that you're going to take that bag and you're going to take it to our dump, the container that it belongs to, and it makes everything so easy. As I've shared the flyers there with you all too. And then we have stickers and things that we can provide you all for the kitchen to put like they did right here. This is a great example of how they're utilizing their Slim Jim, and they have a clear bag, and they're letting whoever's using this container, they know exactly what goes in there. So it's important, and we can provide you all of that as well. So I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that this is important to have in any of the kitchens. Yes.
I just wanted to add one thing. So on the slide, I mentioned this availability of a split bin, and this is specifically for your blue recycling items. So items such as your cardboard, your paper, your plastic water bottles, aluminum cans. Because this is a required service, I understand that sometimes it can be an inconvenience in terms of space. So if you don't have a space for a separate recycling container, the split bin would be your best option since it consists of the same exact size, but it does take 2 streams of waste. So just wanted to emphasize that as well. And that was the white and the blue container that you all saw on the slide.
Thank you. And if I'm not mistaken, I see some business cards there from you. So if folks do want to reach out, they can get those business cards. And for folks listening after the fact, we'll make sure that that information is up on the city's website. So we'll be sharing that information before we wrap up. I do see a question in the audience.
On the public areas, when we put a recycle container on, is there any percentage of contamination if the public puts the wrong stuff on a different container? Is there any percentage of cross-contamination that we can go by?
Another good question. The regulations require that the recycling containers be provided for the public. There isn't really any stipulation on contamination, but I know that if CRNR comes out and you have a bunch of trash in your food waste container, you're going to get a reminder notice, and eventually you're going to probably get contamination fees. So that is a challenge for folks that have public space recycling, is how do we get the public to actually use the proper space for their recycling? Not an easy question. I'm just here to report the regulations, not to make the magic happen.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, so that does conclude our workshop this afternoon. As a reminder, we do have water and snacks in the back. There are multiple handouts from CRNR that you can take as you walk out as well. And we do want to encourage everyone to continue to stay involved, continue to look out for more information from the City of Orange. And please do visit our website, cityoforange.org/solid waste.